Xbox officially confirmed that their next console will play PC and console games, and current speculation is that it'll launch in late 2027. That is unless AI and World War III have anything to say about it. Welcome to Inside Games Daily, the only gaming news show brave enough to report the news even while Bruce is on a long flight. That's right, it's just me today, but that's okay. We got so much to talk about, and I love this stuff. This is when it's all dreams. This is when it's all poetry and speculation. And before our dreams get crushed by high prices and consoles we can't even buy. Here we go. Xbox officially announced Project Helix last week with a social media post revealing nothing more than the name and a preliminary logo. But the logo's kind of cute. You know, it's like DNA, a helix. But it's also an X for Xbox, right? You got PC and console swirling together to make DNA of gaming or whatever. That's clever. I like it. All right. But we got some actual information out of GDC this week. Xbox Next Generation Vice President, it's a hell of a title, Jason Ronald revealed more details at a Game Developers Conference keynote talk yesterday, as reported by IGN. Most of the juiciest hardware details come from this slide right here, which lists Helix's high-level technology. I love talking about rendering tech, so I'm excited to tear into these bullet points right after this.
Inside Games is sponsored by Eneba. Eneba.com is your ultimate gaming marketplace with over 40,000 digital products. It's continuously expanding to become your go-to platform for all your gaming needs. Eneba.com also has amazing discounts. I have purchased from there very, very many times. Basically, any video game is going to have a massive discount. Old, new, AAA titles, indies. They really have something for every single gamer. And they also have an excellent Trustpilot score, so you can rest assured buying those games and playing them will run smoothly. Eneba.com also prioritizes customer satisfaction. They offer 24/7 live support to resolve any concerns regarding your purchases. A good example of a discount on a brand new video game is Resident Evil Requiem. So if you go to Eneba.com, look up Resident Evil Requiem, you're going to find probably somewhere in the neighborhood of a $5 to $10 discount on that game. And Resident Evil Requiem literally just came out. Another great example is Helldivers 2, one of my favorite video games the last 10 years. And it's got a massive discount of just about $10 off. It's $40 retail. And you don't need to be just a PC gamer. You can also be a console gamer. You're going to get discounts on all of those games at Eneba. Buying things is super easy on Eneba.com. It's just a few clicks. You'll have a game key and you can go. So if you want to check out the game discounts at Eneba.com, please click the links down in our description or go to ene.ba/insidegames. And that is how you will tell Eneba that Inside Games sent you to buy some video games. Go enjoy.
Thank you very much for the support, Eneba. It seems like we're all going to have to save up for Project Helix from the sounds of it. But now it's time to gush over the hardware and worry about the prices later. AMD is providing the future console's guts, as they have with the Xbox Series, the Xbox One, even back to the Xbox 360. The custom AMD system on a chip will support next-gen ray tracing performance, and this is an awesome phrase, GPU-directed work graph execution. What the hell does that mean? I did a little reading, so this is kind of the idea. Basically, it's a different method of handling parallel processing. Rendering a single frame of a game is a lot of work, a lot of steps. You gotta render the objects themselves, you gotta apply textures to those objects, you have to apply lighting to those textures, update the physics, update game AI, all that stuff. A lot of those tasks require the previous tasks in a sequence to be finished before they can start their work. So, for example, a physics object, you've got to update where it is on the camera before you can actually apply lighting to it, because it matters where it is. A rendering engine will have barriers in place preventing the calculation of future steps before previous requirements are completed. But that means that if some steps happen faster than others, some processes can remain idle, which slows down the overall rendering pipeline. A work graph basically breaks down all these tasks into little interconnected nodes, and all these dependencies then happen on a per process flow in which one node can directly pass data to a child node without waiting for a barrier or other processes to finish. TLDR, it's a faster and more efficient way of rendering, so that's great. I guess it can all run on the GPU now. Good news is we're getting better tech, and we love that. The slide also boasts the next generation of AMD's resolution scaling called FSR Next. Sounds like a pretty cool soda. FSR Next includes next-gen machine learning resolution scaling and multi-frame generation, on top of, quote, next-gen ray regeneration for ray tracing and path tracing. So everything's next-gen, but it's kind of like just implied that it's more iterative, better versions of the technologies we have now. Finally, the tech will support deep texture compression, which sounds like tech that will potentially reduce the file size of games. Neural texture compression, just from the name of it, sounds like it would use machine learning to extrapolate texture data from smaller seed data. So potentially you don't have to ship a game with 4K textures, you just ship it with a reference texture, and then machine learning looks at that and then extrapolates that to 4K textures that it can throw out across an entire video game. So instead of needing miles and miles of 4K dirt textures, now you just have one little square, and the machine generates the rest for you on the fly, meaning that your install sizes and your download sizes are much, much smaller. That's all me theorizing, by the way. They didn't explicitly say all this. I think it's a pretty believable future for this tech. It's also what the phrase sounds like. Ronald also announced that Xbox will send out alpha versions of Project Helix to developers in 2027. And that's all the concrete data we got from Xbox about Project Helix. But of course, there's a lot more to talk about. This is pretty exciting, and I think people have been waiting for this. Ronald announced that Xbox mode is coming to Windows in April in select markets. I don't like that last phrase. He didn't say which markets they were, but it's coming. This is what they previously called the full screen experience. I think Xbox mode is a much better term for this. This has been on the ROG Xbox Ally handhelds. So this is the dedicated console mode, and now you'll be able to boot your Windows PC into it. The theory is that by loading a really streamlined and minimized version of Windows, you gain efficiencies in power, in battery use, and much like SteamOS, the idea is now that you can plug any PC into a TV, boot it into Xbox mode, and have access to all your PC games in a clean interface. Game preservation also is back out of nowhere. Ronald mentioned this program, revealing that Xbox's games preservation team will, quote, release some iconic games from the past that are now going to be able to be played in entirely new ways. Who knows what that means? But in context, Ronald had just described the team's enhancement of the 2001 classic we all know and love, Fusion Frenzy. Apparently the team was able to enhance this game with FPS boost, auto HDR, and Xbox Cloud gaming support. So maybe they developed a systemic way to roll out these enhancements across all their legacy games? Who knows? Xbox had previously benched their backwards compatibility team in 2019. I remember at the time they had more or less said, we have ported all the games that are worth porting or that we're capable of porting. So we're done. So it's nice to see that they're still finding work and maybe finding ways. The implication is, I think, finding ways to bring classic games to newer players and exposing it to ways they would actually want to play it. This is another more game developer focused bit, and another headline that popped out of GDC. Any developers that ship on Xbox will now get free access to PlayFab Foundation mode. This is a dev kit that provides cross-platform functionality like cross-progression, multiplayer services, economy and inventory management. So now all Xbox developers get that for free. That's nice. Clearly paying into their future of seeing Xbox spanning across multiple screens and devices. And in addition to everything that Xbox said, they also quietly retracted a lot of evidence of their "This is an Xbox" campaign. Game developer noticed that the original Xbox Wire post announcing the campaign had been completely removed. A bunch of other posts were also redacted, although there are some mentions in some other articles. The only article they could find that still mentioned this campaign was the announcement for the ROG Xbox Ally. In a previous report, The Verge had linked this campaign to previous Xbox president Sarah Bond, who departed the company in late February. The close timing of these two things maybe validates that that link was a little more substantial. But the obvious questions remain. When will Project Helix launch and how much will it cost? And this is when dreams start to die a little bit. Popular speculation right now puts both the new Xbox and the PlayStation 6 launching in late 2027, mostly because that's about how long console life cycles are these days. That would put it at about 7 years. That's longer than they used to be. That's about how long they are now. But the world is a little more volatile than it has been in the past. For starters, AI data centers are still sucking up memory, and it doesn't look like that's going to change all the way throughout 2027. Market research firm Counterpoint Research recently concluded that, quote, there is no scenario where memory prices correct in the second half of 2027, given that hyperscaler purchasing intent remains unbroken. So that sucks. There's another problem. Hey, what if the United States just tossed a couple of wars on that? The latest presidential distraction tactic could also directly affect the future of video games. Oh my God, we're here. The problem is helium, it turns out, and that's a key component in the manufacture of PC parts. 30% of global helium supply came from Qatar Energy, which was knocked offline on March 2nd following some drone strikes. South Korea, which is home to electronics giant Samsung and many other memory and SSD manufacturers, imported 64.7% of its helium from Qatar in 2025. So if they can't find another source, that's going to knock manufacturing offline, and is just another one of many incidences in which this whole shit wasn't really thought out very, very fully. But hey, let's drag it back to video games. We come to video games to ignore those problems. Let's try our best here. I just have some open questions and kind of observations about this. The biggest one that I keep thinking about when you converge console and PC is paying for online services. This was an interesting trick that Microsoft pulled back when they launched Xbox Live and found that people were weirdly willing to pay for online multiplayer. And PlayStation followed pretty soon after with PlayStation Plus. It's been an incredible revenue driver for both these companies, but when you start to merge the PC ecosystem with console, you've never had to pay for any multiplayer services on PC, and that remains true to this day. So how do you merge those ecosystems and still get that money? I think we have our answer when Microsoft rebranded Xbox Live to be Xbox Game Pass. It's all called Xbox Game Pass, but those are going to be very strange barriers to keep up when the same game is playable in the same ecosystem on an Xbox console and on a PC. If you need Xbox Game Pass Core to play multiplayer on the console side of things, but you don't on the PC side of things, that's going to get very weird if the same machine can do both of those things. Why would anyone use the console version of a game then? Or worse yet, they will be launching the PC version of a game and never get hit with a purchasing window, and then accidentally launch the Xbox or console version of a game and suddenly be told that they can't engage in online matchmaking without Game Pass Core or whatever. That would be a bit odd, and I think they're probably going to announce some further changes to those programs. Maybe even drop the requirement for online matchmaking for Game Pass and try to just sell it off the back of the game's catalog. It doesn't seem like it's been a winning tactic yet. People don't really seem sold on the volume of games for the price, which also makes me wonder about the separation between console Game Pass and PC Game Pass. Right now, PC Game Pass is pretty aggressively priced. It's around $16 a month, which I think is still valuable. Console Game Pass is $30. That's almost twice as much. But again, if you're merging a console and a PC at the same time, PC Game Pass does all that stuff for half the price. Why would you then even have the more expensive tiers, and how do you convince people to sign up for them? I think they're going to have to reorganize Game Pass, and I worry that they're just going to take away the cheaper PC Game Pass tier. Enjoy it while you can. That's the greatest advice I can offer. The convergence of PC and console causes other ripple effects though, and I think some people are bringing this up in context of their recent reports about PlayStation pulling back their single-player games from the PC platform. When you think about not only Xbox but also Valve making PC ecosystem hardware that basically has the same form factor and the same functionality and the same user experience as a console, then you start to see why Sony might be a little worried about that. Because if you have Project Helix and it's sitting there running Spider-Man next to a PlayStation that's also running Spider-Man, but this one can do it without an online subscription, maybe even run it a little bit better, and maybe even a little bit cheaper because you can get it through multiple stores, PlayStation, suddenly I understand why the perception of their experience would start to get eroded by that. They have to maintain the pricing integrity of their games, which is to say they want to make sure they can keep the price of their games high. And right now they can do that because there's a perceptive difference between playing a game on a PC and playing a game on a PlayStation. But once those perceptions come down, then suddenly you're directly comparing the two, and you start to realize you get massively overcharged on a PlayStation console, which also makes me extra curious about Sony's games as service. The plan is, and this makes sense, for them to still launch day and date for their games as service games, so games like Marathon. But again, with the online subscription model, if you're on a PlayStation, you have to have PlayStation Plus to play Marathon. If you're on a PC, you do not. So if Project Helix is sitting right there and it can play Marathon and do so without the monthly PlayStation Plus subscription, I wonder how much of an effective sales tactic that will be. This is something that it's kind of gotten on my nerves for a long time. Everyone got really used to paying $120, $150 a year for connectivity when you don't need to. And especially if you took all that money over the course of a console generation and just put it into a PC, you'd have better hardware, cheaper games, and you'd save money in the long run. But I digress. All that was before memory and component prices exploded. And on that note, while I think we can all hope for a late 2027 launch, and maybe a sub $1,000 price. I imagine they'd probably want to keep it at 3 digits if they can, $999. But if they want to hit this window and they want it to be very high spec, I feel like that's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a huge challenge. So if they want to hit $999, they might have to wait for a regime change, and not in the way that phrase has been used lately. I mean, maybe here. That said, I think I can see the future, and that this is the future they've been driving towards a while. I think Xbox is trying very hard to onboard newer, younger players, like an entire generation of players that is currently excluded from the console ecosystem, either due to price or just because they've been sucked up by Fortnite and Roblox. So with a game like Helix, if it can have Roblox right next to all the other games in a console ecosystem, maybe if a kid's richer parents buy Project Helix for the living room, and then a kid can see Roblox right next to other games from the past that their parents might help them play, or just something else. Get them out of that ecosystem and into the wider world of console games. I can see the intent. I don't know if they're going to be magnetic enough to pull those babies away from their little online sweatshops. But that'll about do it. Thank you very much for keeping me company while I ramble about non-existent game consoles. I love doing this stuff. Games are always really exciting. I love that it's on the foundation of technology. Like this weird dream space that we love to go into is affected by very real world stuff. Analyzing all those trends is fascinating to me. So if you enjoyed this, and I hope you did, please check out our Patreon. We post everything we do there for free with select spicy memes, handpicked. I go to the farmer's market every day and I pick out the juiciest memes for you guys. I'd like to shout out a couple of folks that are already supporting our show there. So thank you very much, Sherwin Sanchez, Jared Watkins, Buck, Cesar Mendez, and Tyler Jensen. I hope we all play Fusion Frenzy in 4K on our Project Helix a year from now. Thank you very much for watching Inside Games. Hope to see you next time.